Lenny Vangilder with Jude Young. It's our first NBC weekend preview brought to you by First NBC Bank. 31 locations around southeast Louisiana. And I know Ashton Ryan at First NBC Bank loves some baseball, and we may get in the cage and take a few hacks after this. But we are fully in the baseball season now. More on that in a moment. We'll talk a little college baseball and what else we've got coming up down the road as well. But let's start with the Saints. Getting in the free agent derby yesterday, signing a New Orleans native in Keenan Lewis. It's good for the Saints to get on the board, and a good player in Lewis who led the league in pass breakups last year with the Steelers, and a local guy as well. I'm sure that plays well, but you got to believe this is not going to be one and done for the Saints.
Oh, no question about it, but give the Saints credit for getting their hands on a player who is an ascending player in the National Football League. 4 years in, but only a full-time starter this past season, and as you mentioned, as good as it gets as far as defending the pass and not getting interceptions. But again, this tells you about the philosophy of Rob Ryan as the new defensive coordinator and how important it is to have cover corners who can play man-to-man. That's certainly a skill of Lewis, and I don't think the Saints are very happy with what they have right now in the stable. You got to wonder, if you're Patrick Robinson, what this means to you. In particular, of course, Jabari Greer is still a solid player, but he's getting older. So don't be surprised if the Saints aren't done either in bargain free agency or in the draft, continuing to bolster that position, as well as obviously other parts of the defense that they're still clearly looking at.
We're now 72 hours into free agency as we talk here on a Friday afternoon, and you would think phase one, the big rush, is over. Now we're going to get perhaps into phase two, and some of the guys who weren't involved in the higher end negotiations, you're going to see some of those deals come into play. As we were talking before we went on air here, one of the areas the Saints still clearly need to address is linebacker. And what will they do there? Been a lot of talk out there, probably most notably about James Harrison, the former Pittsburgh Steeler. Could he be a guy that ends up in New Orleans sometime next week?
And Harrison could very well be a victim of this wait-and-see period now in free agency after that first few-day rush. He is an older player who had some injury concerns the past 2 years, but he flat-out gets to the quarterback. And the Saints have nobody on the roster proven as an outside linebacker, rusher type that can play in this new 3-4 front. So Harrison's certainly a possibility. We've heard rumors about Victor Butler, who saw playing time as a reserve for the Cowboys. Again, there's the Rob Ryan connection. The Saints are going to look for affordable players, either veterans who can step in, maybe as part-time guys, and help a contender, or young guys like a Lewis, like a Butler, that are ascending players, and they won't break the bank either.
Rob Ryan's made the rounds here in the league. Chances are he's touched a lot of people. One of the guys that got mentioned that he's touched, Nnamdi Asomugha. Right. Born in Lafayette, so he's got a Louisiana connection. You know, a guy who's out there in the market after getting released by the Eagles. So there's so many possibilities out there, so many permutations. A long way to go in free agency. Stay with us here at sportsnola.com. We'll have much more as we go through the entire free agency period. On to basketball, the Hornets on their Cirque du Soleil road trip right now in D.C. to play the Washington Wizards Friday night. They'll continue on to Minnesota, get back home for an extended home stand next week, beginning on Monday against the Golden State Warriors. So much more on them as we look ahead to next week. They haven't played since Tuesday night. So 3 days on the road here without a game is kind of unusual for a team, but that's the situation the Hornets, soon to be Pelicans, have faced. On to the world of college basketball. LSU, Tulane out of their conference tournaments. Both of them likely headed for postseason. We're just getting word Friday afternoon. Tulane is going to be at home in the first round of the CIT, the CollegeInsider.com tournament, Wednesday night at Devlin Fieldhouse against South Alabama. First time in 13 years Tulane is headed to the postseason. That's a step in the right direction for Ed Conroy's team.
I think it certainly helps a young program. Only a couple of key seniors graduating, one of them Kendall Timmons, whose career derailed really on the ascendancy he was seeing with a knee injury. So it's nice that he gets another home game, and it's good to see Tulane be able to build towards the future by learning how to play in the postseason a little bit more. Conference USA tournament, they won a game, ran into Memphis. This is an opportunity to play a team that Tulane's more talented than. They should beat South Alabama and see if they can make a run and learn how to do something like that this program really hasn't experienced in a while.
Not a bad South Alabama team, though. Don't discount them. Second in the Sun Belt. They've got the Player of the Year in the Sun Belt in Rabid. Nice player, a big guy who will certainly do, hold his own. No, none. And I don't think any taken. But don't just assume because they're from, the Sun Belt Conference coming into New Orleans to play a Conference USA team. Tulane will definitely have their hands full with a South Alabama team. We'll see how that turns out on Wednesday, again at 7 o'clock. And it is, conference tournament final weekend. We're coming up to Selection Sunday. A lot of teams watching that proverbial bubble out there to see if they're going to get in. LSU, much the same boat Tulane was in, won the 8-9 game in their conference tournament, lost to the number 1 seed in Florida Friday afternoon. They will hope for good news from the NIT come Sunday night. I tend to think they're going to get in probably as a 6 seed or so in the NIT. Surely
they have a good shot of getting in. They will definitely be on the road in the first round in that seeding from 5 to 6. They have to hope for no more upsets in these smaller one big conferences. They'll be watching the Southland. They'll be watching the SWAC, where teams like Southeastern Louisiana, Northwestern State, and Southern all have a chance to punch their ticket to the big dance. And that's certainly something that local college basketball fans will be watching closely this weekend.
One upset already happened in the WAC tournament. Louisiana Tech, the 1 seed there, got beat on Thursday night. They are now almost certainly headed to the NIT. I mentioned on Twitter Thursday night, follow me at Lenny Vangilder, by the way. What about an LSU at Louisiana Tech first-round NIT game? Seedings break, who knows? That could be very interesting in North Louisiana. Just a thought out there. Along the college front, you hear the pings in the background. Hey, we're getting really into baseball season now. LSU opening SEC play this weekend at Mississippi State. Tulane's got Texas State at home this weekend. I'm sorry, UTSA, not Texas State. They were there earlier this year. UTSA at home this weekend will be a Conference USA opponent, at least for a year for them come next year. And, of course, we're out here at Kersh-Rooney Stadium where Delgado is getting ready for a 3-game series against St. Charles from Missouri Saturday and Sunday out here at Kersh-Rooney. And we're excited to announce that Sports NOLA is going to have 6 Delgado conference games for you live streaming right here on sportsnola.com beginning a week from Saturday, the 23rd, when the Dolphins entertain Baton Rouge Community College. So that's some exciting news there. But on the early baseball front, these guys behind us, the 11th ranked team in the country, they're off to a great start. LSU is rolling. Tulane has had their ups and downs with a lot of injuries and such. But it's still good. We're 70 degrees, sunshiny day out here. I mean, it feels like it's baseball season finally, and it's really getting into the meat of that now as we're about a month into the season.
Certainly Delgado and Tulane getting closer to conference play. For LSU, it all starts this weekend, and the key in the SEC, especially on the road, you try to get 2 out of 3. 19-20 wins out of 30, that tends to get you a conference title. LSU did it last year. We'll learn a lot about them and how they match up against a team that has maybe even more pitching depth than the Tigers when you talk about Mississippi State playing in their home ballpark in front of what will be a huge crowd to open the SEC weekend.
Mississippi State was undefeated, and all of a sudden Central Arkansas rolled into Starkville and took 2 out of 3 last weekend. Pretty good program out of the Southland, by the way. And, you're right. I think right now if you told Paul Maneri I could be 20-10, 19-11 in the SEC, let's not even play the schedule, take it right now. And he's definitely, with his 1-2 of NOLA and Eads, that's as good a 1-2 as anybody has in the SEC. So that'll be fun to watch. Stay with us here at sportsnola.com. We got a lot coming up. We didn't even talk about women's Final Four and the women's tournament coming down the line. That we'll touch on that on Monday because that bracket comes out on Monday night, and of course the road ends right here in New Orleans next month. Jude, thanks for joining us for this special edition of the first NBC Weekend Preview.
Certainly plenty to talk about. Should be a fun weekend for local sports fans.
Well, stay with us here at sportsnola.com. We'll be back with you on Monday.